A young mother called Christine McKenzie lived in this house in Wolverhampton not long ago. While she was here, pregnant with her second child and without a husband, she filled in this questionnaire. She was asked, "In the past 2 weeks, have you gone a whole day without a meal?" She answered yes, and added, "The baby had some porridge." She was asked to list the typical day's meals. She wrote, "Breakfast, nothing. Midday, toast, jam, or an egg. Supper, nothing. Have you any general comments?" she was asked. "I don't feel very well," she wrote. Christine McKenzie is one of the people you will hear about in the next half hour. They are people who represent the true crisis in this country. Tonight, more than 2 million parents will go to bed hungry in order to give their children something to eat. And already many of these children are suffering a degree of malnutrition and diseases like rickets related to malnutrition. But please don't get me wrong. This is not a documentary about the perennial poor. In all the numbing, mostly middle-class debate about falling living standards in Britain, one truth has been excluded. It is this. For the first time since the Great Depression, Britain, the so-called welfare state, is deliberately cutting back the means of survival of its poorest and their children. The Hopwood family of Liverpool just exist on £30.53 a week, and that includes all their entitled benefits. There are 5 in the family, and for the 6 months that Harry Hopwood has been out of work, all of them have come to regard hunger, not imagined hunger, but real hunger, as a way of life. This was their larder the day I was there, all the food they had in the house. They had less than £4 to feed them for 4 days, £1 a day. And like all the families in this film, the Hopwoods are not the worst off. They never go anywhere because they can't afford to. The children never get toys or books because they can't afford them. Their lives are unchanging and wasting. The Hopwoods hardly ever eat fresh food. Mrs. Irene Hopwood is very ill and has been told by her doctor that she may recover only if she eats the protein and vitamins found in fresh food. On what the government ironically calls social security, she can't afford to get better. Do you ever feel hungry?
Sometimes, now and again.
But I mean, do you ever feel hungry at a time when there's not enough to eat? Do you ever come in and there's nothing in the cupboard to eat?
Yeah.
When does that happen much?
Sometimes.
When you come in, what do you want and it's not there?
Sometimes make toast and there's no bread there.
What worries you most, obviously, apart from Irene's illness? What worries you most about the children?
Well, the kids not getting the proper food. They're not getting out like ordinary kids.
Don't get much, we try.
Yeah.
But the meat's too high, you just can't get it. Can't afford it.
What's gone up so much in the last few months that it's really gone out of your reach?
Well, potatoes, we only have them on a Sunday now.
Really?
Don't we? Yeah. Potatoes on a Sunday. Don't have them during the week now, like. They're cheapest at about £8 a pound, and you have to go looking for that.
Yeah.
It's about 7 weeks since we've had a decent Sunday's dinner. We've had breast or
Yeah.
cheap things, sausages,
Yeah.
you know, different things
Yeah.
like that.
How do you think the kids put up with it?
I think they're really ignorant of the fact, you know what I mean? They're more or less just brought up to it. It's a shame, like, this should be the happiest time of their lives, but it's basically it's the worst. They've got nothing to look back on.
What are the happiest times for you at home?
Don't think any, really.
No? None at all?
No, not really.
You ever been on a holiday?
No, never.
Ever been to the countryside?
Yeah, once when I was in boarding school.
What'd you think of it?
I think it was all right.
Would you like to live there?
Yeah.
Do you ever go on holiday?
No.
Irene, do you?
Only when I was in school, when I went to Colomandi for a week.
When you were in school?
I was 11,
How old are you now?
35.
And how old are you?
36.
Yeah. What do you think your children's future will be? Do you ever think what kind of future they'll have?
Well, they've got no future here. They've got no future here at all. None of us have. It's like, I think it'd be easier to save time than put up with this.
Serve time in prison?
Yeah. It must be, you wouldn't
Do you feel you're in it? Do you feel you're serving time?
It is, it's just like a prison. It's worse, in fact, because you're paying for this. I've got to pay me rent every week, you know, and it's gone up £190 on the 4th of August. It's not even worth £190 on its own. This is our bedroom now, Jim. See the state of the paper.
Yeah.
This is how the Hopwoods are forced to live. Their council estate is not officially a slum, but merely one of the soul-shredding monsters thrown up as barracks. It reminds me of my first summer's walk into the wasteland of Harlem. Bravely, Harry shows me around. No clothes in the wardrobe, no sheets on the bed. Cigarette ends to be rolled and smoked again and again.
What do you feel, Harry, when we're talking to you about this? I mean, here we are going through your house with cameras and...
I feel like chasing this, actually.
What?
I feel ashamed, you know, the state of it now.
You're bearing up very well. We're asking you a lot of questions about how you live and how you... little clothes you have and the fact you've got cigarette ends beside your bed. Not many people would bear up as well as you, but how do you feel as we take over your house like this?
Yeah, it's in the open now, isn't it? I should go all the way, like, not worried.
Yeah. What effect do you think it'll have on people who watch this programme?
I hope it'll have effect on the health to get a house, actually, that's all. Not worried what other people think, like, you know, I don't want to charity or nothing, I still want to get back to work.
Perhaps the least understood crisis in the last few months has been that more and more impoverished parents can no longer afford to feed their children, not even baked beans, not even potatoes, the old staples. Incidentally, these pictures are not from the 30s as they might appear. They are from the 70s.
The way governments now cut benefits is to not make up for the rate of inflation. And what the report was saying to the government was that you've now announced the rates for this coming November. For the very poorest on benefit, and we're talking about the largest group now, the unemployed, we're only going to increase benefits by 13%. That was 7 months in advance of the increase. Already, prices have risen by over 6%. So come November, for the first time since the 30s, when the poor go to draw their new, supposedly increased benefit, in real terms, it will be a cut for them. And some people may try and reject the message that they see tonight by saying it's the family's fault, people could find jobs if they wanted it, and so on. Others, I hope, get the very unpleasant feeling in the gut that they only have their high standard of living because large numbers of families, a few of whom we see in this programme, have an appallingly low standard of living.
Irene and Jim Brunsden live in Hackney in London. They have 2 children, Derek by Jim's first marriage and the baby Rachel, aged 2. Jim is unemployed and their total benefits amount to £28 and 22 pence.
Irene, how much food have you got in the house right now?
Well, I've got about half a loaf of bread,
Yeah.
about 2 eggs and a little bit of cornflakes for the children.
And that's it, that's all they've got?
That's all.
What did Rachel have this morning?
Just a bit of cornflakes,
Yeah.
sugar and milk in the cornflakes, that's all.
And say yesterday, what did she eat all yesterday?
She had a piece of some cornflakes in the morning, then she had a bit of bread. And last night I managed to borrow some money just to get her some fish and chips.
And is that about average what she has in a day?
Well, normally when I've got the money, she'll have like a bit of fruit or something,
Yeah.
you know, during the day.
How much money have you got in the house now?
About 5 pence.
5 pence? Well, how are you going to get tonight's meal?
Well, I'll have to go round and borrow some money.
Who-
Today's meal for the baby.
What will you get her?
Well, if I can borrow a pound, I can get 2 tins of meat from the market or something.
Is she ever hungry in so much that she goes to bed hungry? Do you know that she's hungry and you can't give her food?
Well, she doesn't tell me like she's hungry. She just sort of moans all the time, and I get that feeling like she's hungry, you know? And if I've got anything, I'll give it to her. But if not, then I'll just give her milk.
Does that happen much?
Well, yeah.
So when you say she moans, what at night?
She just moans and moans all the time, you know? Then I know something's wrong.
You must be very worried with a 2-year-old getting such little nourishment.
Well, it is worry. Believe me, it is worry.
What do you think Rachel's future is?
Well, if I can just get myself a job, nothing goes wrong, and my husband gets well and he gets himself a job, we should pull out. But otherwise, we're just going to go down further. And it will lead to no food, no money at all.
I think you've had a notice to quit from the council.
Yes. Yes.
When do you expect to be evicted, do you think?
Well, we was given up to the 18th of August. The 18th of August. And then something would be done from then. Then they take us to court.
If you're evicted, what will happen to the baby?
They'll probably either put me and the baby into a halfway house and my husband will have to find somewhere to sleep, or else they'll take the baby away from me.
If the Brunsdens are evicted, it will cost the local authority at least £70 a week to keep them in temporary accommodation. In other words, rather than help them, the authority is prepared to spend that amount of public money just to exercise its right to throw them out. That doesn't make sense, does it? But that's the way the welfare state operates in Britain today. Indeed, the smashing of the Brunsden family, and especially of the baby, is typical of these times. First, Jim Brunsden loses his job as a lorry driver through no fault of his own, and then his family tries in vain to draw their full social benefits from a maze of 46 means-tested handouts. And now they are hungry and in debt to a tallyman and fast approaching a point of desperation. But of course, that's the way it was in Ramsay MacDonald's Britain in 1931, when mothers in desperation contemplated taking up in order to feed their children.
I wouldn't go on the streets, not if I could help it. But if my baby really, really needed something to eat and I didn't have a penny, whether it cost me my marriage, my life or anything, I would have to do it for my baby's sake. I mean, I'm not a type of girl to do this sort of thing. I was never brought up to do this sort of thing. If I thought my baby would really in need of food, then I'm sorry, I would have to do it.
And you're very desperate, are you?
Well, we're getting closer to it. I mean, if I'd done this sort of thing, I would lose my husband, I know that for a fact. But we're getting so close to it now that it's going to be that way before long. I'm just going to have to go out to keep my kids.
Of the kids who are now being smashed by this recession, and by the decisions of those handling the recession, some will suffer permanent physical damage, like the children with rickets and the children with direct effects of poor nourishment. The others, perhaps like Melanie here, will get used to it and grow up to go on to a second-rate school and work in a second-rate job and live in a second-rate house. And need I say, lead a second-rate life.
If I can, I'll let their birthdays go, you know, like with the twins, they're too young to know anyway when it's their birthday.
So they don't have birthdays?
No, and, but with the older ones, I have to try and do something, you know.
What do you do?
Oh, give them a couple of bob, you know, £1 or something if I can afford it, you know. And I hope that their birthday falls on a family allowance day, it's not too bad then. I think the kids even know that themselves now, you know. If it's a Tuesday or a Saturday their birthday falls on, they're all right. But if it's any other day through the week, they've had it. Occasionally I'll ask Social Security for a grant, you know, like I did recently, to get essential things like shoes and that I can't afford to buy out the normal week's money. But you can't keep asking them. You know, I mean, their shoes don't last 5 minutes, they're all heavy on their shoes. It does get me down sometimes, you know. I've never had a new bed since we've been married. I've got that held up with a drawer. The bed is stacked up with a dressing table drawer. I've just been given bunk beds for the children, for Mandy and Melanie. No, there must be more to life than this. Surely this is not all there is. There must be something more, not, you know, as it is now with the kids and the money problem and, you know, housing as it is. There must be more to life than what we've got.
What does being well off mean to you?
Wouldn't have to worry about clothes for them or anything. And we'd live in a decent place, you know, with, well, the things that people take for granted. Bathrooms and hot water and things like that, you know.
You've got a bathroom?
Got a bathroom, yeah.
Hot water?
No, got no hot water.
But why don't you have hot water out here, surely?
Well, there's nothing here. There's no facilities for hot water here.
So what happens when you all have a bath, or...?
Well, we don't. We usually just have washes down. We put saucepans and kettles on, you know, for a couple of hours. With the twins, I can put them in the sink, a couple of kettles, and that'll do them. But with all the other girls, with the 4 girls, it's a couple of hours job, you know.
Because we're told our standard of living will fall sharply. I mean, is that...
Well, I don't think mine's ever risen, so it can't go much lower than it is now. My standard of living can't get much lower. So, if anything, they'll all have to come down to my level, won't they?
A Child Poverty Action Group report last month stated that 5 million men, women and children in Britain now have no more than £1.60 a week to spend on food. That is £1.60 for each of these children, who are the future.
I opened this film by telling you about Christine McKenzie, who in her own words described her near-starvation diet. Breakfast, nothing. Midday, toast, jam or an egg. Supper, nothing. We didn't show Christine in this film because she is and buried in an unmarked grave in a Wolverhampton cemetery. She was 21 years old. Weak and undernourished, she died from a rare infection just a few weeks after the birth of her second child. The truth, of course, is that Christine McKenzie, with a total weekly income last year of £11.10, could barely afford to go on living in the welfare state of Britain. Her miserably low social benefits could not keep pace with the uncontrolled rise of food prices. In the questionnaire I mentioned, she was asked, "Have you had any help from the social services in the past year?" She answered no, and the Director of Social Services for Wolverhampton has since confirmed that she was speaking the truth. "We had no record of this young woman," he said, "until the night the police told us she had died." This government's minute increases in social benefits planned for November will be wiped out by inflation and are effectively cutbacks and pose a direct threat to the survival of the growing number of the poor. Unless we regain our sense of priorities, which amount to our civilization, there will be more and more Christine McKenzies.